Hello and welcome to computer class. My name is Dave and today we are talking about 3 ways to add CSS to your HTML. So navigate to the HTML tutorial on W3 Schools' website and click on the HTML CSS tab. Now there are 3 ways to add CSS to your HTML. The first is inline, the second is internal, and the third is external. Now the inline is used by using the style attribute, which we've talked about already in a previous lesson. And inline is used by using the style tag in the head section of the HTML document. And then the external is used by using the link element and linking to an external style sheet that is a different document altogether. It's not even in the same HTML document, okay? So let's do each one of these together. Now before we start, it should be noted something, and I wanted to explain this too before I get going, that there's a hierarchy to this. So inline styling is able to override, and I got this from techrangers. I guess it's .edu, but a whole bunch of dots in front of it. Anyway, inline styling overrides in cascading style sheets the internal styling. And the internal styling is able to override the external. And the external is able to override the browser default. So it's kind of like a circle effect. The only way to override the inline styling is to use something called the important. So there it is right there, the exclamation mark and important on the inline styling. And if you do that, if you do this to one of your styles, you'll actually override the defaults. So that's a way around it, okay? But anyway, back to this. So now that you understand there's a hierarchical system going on here, this is the baseline. This one can override anything, okay? And that's why you might do it. So you use the style attribute, and then in the quotation marks, you list your styling. And if I click to try it myself here, you see obviously the style is added to an H1 tag and a paragraph tag. You've got blue and then red, and that is nothing new to us. We know what inline styling is. So that's the first one, and this is the lowest level. If you wanted to override the internal, external styling, you would use inline styling. The second is internal styling. And basically in the head section, you use the style tag. So since this is a new tag, I'm going to add it to my HTML here. Style it to my spreadsheet actually. Okay. Internal CSS styling. Okay. So it's added in there. That way we can keep track of it. And basically what you would then do is you would target each tag and list your styles that you have for them up in the head section, and it will do everything that you've asked the browser to do. And again, this one can be overridden by the inline styling, but it cannot override the inline styling. Okay, it can be overridden by it. All right, the last type, and again, that's not too hard to understand. You just simply stick everything in between the style tags. The last type is known as the external style sheet. And a lot of times people do this to break the code apart. It's nice to have it in a separate spot, in a separate page, actually. And the reason people might stick it in the same document is because their website is a smaller website. It's mainly one page, so you stick it all together. It's easier to do that. But if something happens to need to be applied to multiple pages or even multiple sites, even as in the case of linking to CSS blocks that are on the internet, you would need to put it as a link like this, okay? And so this is pretty important to copy down and know for reference in the future. So this is how you put in external styling, CSS styling, okay? All right, so that's a link tag, and you must have that in the head section. And then you would put this in a separate document. So let's actually do that because that's something new, that's something practical to do. So I'm going to grab this, copy, Control C, go to brackets, my code editor, press File. Actually, we need to create a folder on our desktop. Right click, New Folder, call it website.com. Inside our website, we'll do our main folders we usually do. img font. We'll do CSS because we need that one, and JS. Okay. Now we're going to save our index.html file to this folder right here by doing File, New, Files, Save As, and we will save it to the desktop, website.com, and index.html. Okay? And once we save it, there we go, we have index.html. Now we want to put the CSS document in here. That's if you have multiple CSS documents. I'm going to do it because I think it's a good idea. But first, I need to copy my code in. There I have a simple HTML page here. And now I'm going to create my style sheet. So I'm going to File, New, File, Save As, and save it into website.com. And then double click into the CSS folder, call it styles.css, and press Save. Now everything I stick into this document will affect this document because, again, styles.css, that's what the link is targeting. So their documents are now connected. And as a result, if I go back to my page here and grab this code, Control C, drop it in, Control V, because we're not really learning to write it yet. We're just learning how to connect it. And then press Save, Control S. Now it should do the body is powder blue, and it should do the color is blue. And just to show you that it's different than theirs, I'll change that one. I'm going to say yellow. Actually, I'll do, we'll do green, just for the sake of it, yellow, green. All right, there it is on our desktop. Double click the index.html file, and something is wrong, right off the bat. So what did we do that we did incorrectly here? Well, we didn't use the directory structure of our file. So we need to do CSS and target the folder, and then the style sheet. So you got to remember that this this link needs to match your directory structure. Press Save. Okay, and now the styles work. Now that's pretty ugly, and I don't expect you to obviously make a website that looks like this, but that's just the practicality of it. So you can use the directory structure that we've taught in a previous lesson. If you haven't watched that, go back and watch that. And there's the code for it. All right, moving down just a little bit further, we've already talked about fonts and sizes, and they give some extra stuff here. We've already talked about borders. Padding is something new, I believe, in our CSS we haven't talked about. So let's go ahead and drop that in there. Padding is really important when you style. And here we have the padding padding actually and margin are really important. They follow something called the box model. So padding property defines the padding of the space between the text and the border. If I press the try it myself here, you can see between the text and the border. Then there's the border, and you use that by doing the border tag, which I've talked about in a previous lesson. And then outside the border is something called margin. And here we go. We have outside here is the margin, and the margin is 50 pixels. So if we use the box model, inside is padding, outside is margin, and the border divides the two. Okay, so those are some practical things to know. That's more CSS, but it can't hurt to write it down just because it's a practical style to have. So this is padding, and then we've got margin. I'll just copy that real fast. That way we have it in our style sheet as we go through this tutorial. Okay. And again, I think this could be added into a CSS tutorial as well. But kind of HTML and CSS overlap a lot of times, and you're starting to see that. They work really much together in order to get things done. Here, this is the first time we've actually put CSS separately. Before, we've always put it inline in our styling. And so hopefully you learned something today about how to add CSS to your website. You can do it inline, you can do it internally, and you can do it externally. All right, so if you haven't liked this video, I encourage you to do so. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. And as always, I will see you in the next video.